of the universe. Follow Halley on her website at HalleyElise.com, and all her shows can be seen via live stream video. Now, here's your host, Empowerment Psychic, Halley Elise.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. As always, when I have a guest, I'm excited and delighted. And we have a gentleman here who has been on the air with us before, Shaman Hawk. Last time he was here, he shared with us about all the different ways that a shaman works and the different types of shaman. He's been out of the country lately more than in the country and has some fascinating information to share. So without further ado, Shaman Hawk. Hi.
Hi, good to be back.
Glad you could join us again. So I want to dive right in. And for those who don't really have an understanding of what shamanism is, can you just give them a quick overview? And then I really want to be able to focus on what you're doing now and the projects and how there's a distinction in countries and how spirituality is taking on, if you will, a new era.
Sure. Shamanism is basically a constant willingness and evolution of personal exploration and development, and as many aspects of self as you can imagine.
Okay. So when you are going through that, if you will, experience yourself or walking that path, you, I would guess, interact with other people, and then they become what? Followers? They become apprentices? How does that work?
Sometimes it's an apprenticeship. Most of the time, a lot of my work can be anything from classes, lectures, private appointments, and often just over casual cups of coffee.
Perfect. So the idea is to share information, to teach, to evolve, yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So you've been in Transylvania, you've been in Germany, you've been in Hungary, and was teasing earlier about, you got all my relatives covered. Not the Germans so much, but Hungarians, Romanian, Russians. Tell us a little bit about how did that all happen? Because you were here working, and the next thing I know, you're like, leaving the country. So what happened that was the catalyst for you to go out of the country?
Oh, one of those weird shamanic stories. Okay. I tried to do a few things here, but it just felt like I wasn't in the right place at the right time. And I just did a prayer up into spirit and just said that I'm ready to go wherever, whenever, put me in the right place. And then a couple weeks later, I found myself in Transylvania, Romania.
I love it.
In January.
In January. A little cold there, perhaps?
Just a bit.
Okay. So when you got there, what was the purpose? I remember seeing you on all sorts of videos from TV shows and interviews. And so did somebody just realize, well, there's a shaman we can use? How did that evolve?
Actually, it was just like that.
Okay.
And I met somebody down in Miami Beach, Rita Sibuk, and she said, you should come to Transylvania. We had talked many aspects of shamanism while she was here in South Florida. And she said, yes, you can come over there. We'll do some classes and lectures and things like that. And before you know it, that's exactly what I was doing. It was really interesting that they were looking to me to help teach Native American things, but instead I've been helping people more connect with their Hungarian roots. They have a very similar culture to Native Americans.
In what way is it similar?
Very, very close to the land. You also have to remember that communism fell in 1989, so these people were pretty much in the dark up until then, and they're just catching up to the 21st century. But when you look at their drumming circles, their ceremonies, they do sweat lodges, is their version of it. Instead of teepees, they have yurts. But they're very, very close to their land and their ancestors.
Okay, and there is that corollary there. I think, though, don't you, that most religions, most cultures, at some point started that way. I think meaning we know that there is a hierarchy when it comes to politics. We know that there's a hierarchy when it comes to money. But all of these things evolved later in human history. From the onset, it was about the earth and about the moon and about, if you will, cultivating what was around you and learning about it. So you think the resurgence really is simply because there was that transition in the 80s? Or do you think it's something bigger than that?
It was interesting when I was over there. People were bragging about how they called that area around the Carpathian Basin the heart chakra of the world. And I thought, well, this is cute. These people really love their country and, and so on. But Oh, and the other part is chakras were never really part of my system. However, since I've been over there, I'm taking a bit closer look at the chakra systems, and I've almost come to believe that Hungary might be the heart chakra of the world.
Of the world.
I never thought I'd hear myself say that, but
Now, this is coming from you who knows
from me,
about
yep.
ley lines and is very, if you will, linear in thought when it comes to structure and how things are supposed to lay out. And as much as we tease about the whole heebie-jeebie thing, there's a basis for it. So it's kind of funny that now you're looking at things differently.
yes, I am. And after as long as I've been in 51 years in shamanism, now I can. It's been great for me to be able to be in an environment where they're really stimulating new thought and having me look at my stuff as far as my teaching material, things like that, in a completely different way.
Okay.
And in a very stimulating environment.
I think that's the whole thing, though, isn't it? No, here in the States, and it's not that I want to say we're stagnant, but we so often have a particular programming, if you will, a paradigm that we work with. And it seems to be passed down from generation to generation. And instead of connecting back with our roots, we seem to get away from it. You know, even if we look at things such as, let's say, an Italian-American family. Years ago, when somebody came over from Italy, they immersed themselves in what the culture was here in the U.S., but they also kept their roots. And it was very important to honor those traditions and to teach that to their children. Nowadays, it's kind of like, my ancestors come from there. I'm American. And there's nothing wrong with being American, but it's interesting how some of that, if you will, old thought, belief systems, traditions, things that made you dig a little deeper, don't seem to be as present. Would you agree?
I agree with that, but also if I could take a sidestep,
Sure.
I want to point out that the attitude towards spiritual development is very, very different. Here, people want to know what I can do for them. When I'm in Germany, Hungary, or Romania, they want me to show them what they can do for themselves.
Love
So
that.
It's a very, very different application of knowledge.
Love that. So you have people that aren't looking for a quick fix, is what I'm hearing. It's not, let me go to a class for 2 days and become proficient, but let me actually become that person by studying, by teaching, by learning. I think that's amazing.
And when I give them homework, when I give them tasks to do, they do it. I mean, I'm looking at that because they do it because they want to get the results from the work. And they get those results because they did the work. And then I can take them to the next level. So that's the part that's really enjoyable for me.
I know when we were talking before we got on the air, we were talking a little bit about the whole psychic aspect of this. You know, shamanism is very broad, and as you said, it's that constant evolution. But there is such a vast majority of the work that really taps you into that universal wisdom, that innate knowledge, divination, and I know that you do a lot of that as well. So if I'm understanding correctly, the people that you're dealing with are not just saying, fix it for me and give me an answer, but they're digging a little deeper and wanting to evolve and develop themselves. How do you go about doing that when you're dealing with a language barrier? Because I know you're dealing with a translator in each of these places.
Yes, that translator thing. Hungarian is a very interesting language, and first off, that it still has about 85% of its original content, meaning that alone, the people who speak it are very close to their land because the language comes from the land. At the same time, with the translations, I had to keep all my sentences very, very brief and to the point, no contrasting tenses, a lot of little things that just drive translators up the wall because the sentence structures are so different. But it had me pay more attention into the vibrations of the sounds of the language. And that started to lead me back into more thinking about things in physics. And I met a Russian, a woman that was trained by a Russian physicist, speaking Russian and Hungarian through the translator to me in English. But in keeping all of the communications very, very to the point, it almost made me apply, as well the other people, more empathic skills and speaking through instinct in the conversations.
Awesome. I just want to share with our audience that is watching the live feed that it is shaman, Shaman, Hawk, not Shannon. There seems to be a little bit of a typo there that was on the screen. I don't know. It happens all the time. We get together. I'm surprised the mics are working. But I want to let people know, too, that if they want to call in, they have a question about shamanism or what you're doing outside of the country, they can call 888-565-1470. That's 888-565-1470. And Shaman Hawk is here. And as we continue, if you would share a little bit about some of the projects, because really and truly, I think people are fascinated about different cultures and how people approach things. And, what you might teach here, for instance, we've done like the tea ceremony program together to help people connect as far as vibrationally and put their essence into the tea. And then they share that. And then, they're supposed to follow protocol. And like you said, the people there seem to be doing the homework. Here, as you know, we ran into quite a few issues. Great people showed up. They were like, wow, want to do this. But then they have to actually do it on their own and keep track. And it seemed to be a bit of a problem for them. Whereas you're saying that outside of the country, you've got these people who are really hungry and anxious to do the work, to understand how that turns out. So do you teach things such as the tea ceremony, or are you teaching at a totally different level?
Oh, no, we did the first one I start off with is creating your own divination set. Whether it's your own set of tarot cards, your own set of rune stones, or whatever system that you may develop so you can go ahead and give readings. And I describe that process as what you're doing is actually creating a set of mirrors so your left brain can articulate what your right brain is seeing. The next one is the tea ceremony, the psychic tea ceremony. It's nice to be working with people who will go buy the tea before the night of the class.
So they have an idea of what they're actually doing.
Yes. But then the other part has been the sweat lodges. Because they're so much more into being close to the land, they're more open to what the land comes to them. And again, because their language is so much closer to land than, let's say, English is. But they just have such a strong desire. It's just, what it's like? It's like what you and I were enjoying here back from like 95, 98,
Okay, yeah, we were quite busy there for a while, and people were, again, I'll use the word hungry, to access divination tools. They were hungry to learn about how to get centered and meditate. And nowadays in the U.S., there's such a plethora and to the point of overabundance of people who teach, and not all of them are skilled. And then you have students that want to manage things in 2 seconds versus learning. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with my guest, Shaman Hawk.
Bob, did you see Halley Elise in the paper?
Who?
The empowerment psychic, Halley Elise. They did a 2-page write-up. The columnist was enthralled. Halley went right to an issue that she was dealing with. I'm looking at HalleyElise.com right now.
What are you thinking? Should we schedule an appointment?
Matter of fact, yes. You have issues with Sue and me, my business. Take a look at her background. It's impressive, and she has decades of experience.
I want to put it on my iPad. What's her info?
Empowerment Psychic Halley Elise. HalleyElise.com. 561-755-2166.
Spell it.
HalleyElise.com.
So it's HalleyElise.com and 561-755-2166, right?
561-755-2166. That's it.
You're listening to Empowerment Psychic Halley Elise, and she invites you to visit her website for more information about all that she does at HalleyElise.com. Now, back to your host, Empowerment Psychic Halley Elise.
Hello and welcome back. This is the Halley Elise Show, and if you're just tuning in, I have Shaman Hawk here visiting with us today and sharing information about his work that he's been doing outside of the country, in Transylvania and Hungary and Budapest, and wonderful places dealing with people that are really interested in learning and growing. And just before the break, we were talking about how going back several years ago, people here really wanted to know information, and there were not that many teachers. And nowadays, there's quite a few. And on break, we were discussing the fact that it's so important to test your teacher, to ask for references, to make sure you get a referral. Do you find that being similar over in, let's say, Hungary, or is it very different when it comes to that? When you're dealing with a teacher, are there a lot of them, or are they limited? What's the landscape there?
Well, actually, the scene is kind of new over there. So I told them, as the land starts to open up and give you more knowledge, you can expect all these other, fly-by-night teachers to come, and they've been doing that. So I tell people when I'm giving the lectures and the classes, feel free to test the teacher. I welcome it myself. I mean, you and I have been in the South Florida area, 30 years
Roughly,
actively?
yeah.
So we have a long-standing reputation with people, and some of our students are now teaching.
That's true.
That's nice to see. But yeah, they're starting to get that, but they're taking the advice, and it's like, prove it. If you want to teach something, prove it. Let's show me you actually know what you're getting ready to teach. And I welcome people to do the same thing here. If you get somebody new in the area, ask around. But if they're saying that they can teach you psychic development, like, really? Well, show me how, and demand that they give you results about it. Back into the sweat lodges, though.
Mm-hmm.
You remember, a sweat lodge is just a ceremony that creates an extreme condition that has non-essential systems like the ego just shut down. So you can sit there in a nice mind, body, spirit connection and get information from the land just the way our ancestors did.
You don't have a choice. You're in with a bunch of really hot rocks in the dark, lined up with people like shoulder to shoulder. You can't move. It's almost like being in a yoga trance. So you have to be in that space.
With people you don't know.
Exactly.
It was something we used to do a lot of back in the mid-'90s here, but I don't think anybody's... Oh, can I touch on the ayahuasca thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, people love to take a trip, and they have to be careful, but I'm sure you'll bring this up. Go ahead.
Yeah. There is a plague of the ayahuasca people. You can spend up $150 a night or whatever. And now, I've done that ceremony. I used to take people through that ceremony. This is not for beginners, okay? It's for people who have done their work. Like the teacher plants, they can be very beneficial in some ways under the right conditions.
Of course, just like herbs for teas, for healing.
Exactly. And even with that, you should know which ones, because you wouldn't want to give what normally stimulates the immune system to somebody with an autoimmune deficiency thing. You want to substitute like Reishi mushroom, but you have to know everything about the herbs. But the same thing with the ayahuasca ceremonies. You just don't, herd people in that you don't know, take their money, give them a hallucinogen, and think that they're going to get their life in order. And then unfortunately, the people who come to this country that are doing these ceremonies, if they make any wrong moves, they just go home.
True. And they leave the people here to pick up the pieces.
Like you and me. How many... That's the other frustrating part about it. Most of our healing work has been cleanup after people like this.
Well, I mean, I can tell you, and you know this for a fact, I've had so many clients that come in that have had bad experiences. They go into a psychic, and the psychic tells them that there's evil all around them, and they take $5,000 cash from them, or they tell them to do these crazy types of things that they're going to get better, that they're going to get centered and grounded, and it has nothing to do with the individual at all. It has to do with the person who wants their money. And it's so important, really, that you get with someone who has a genuine interest in your welfare. If whether you're using an herbal tea or even something as simple as valerian root, it is not my place to be a doctor. I will sometimes make a suggestion that somebody investigate a particular herb or investigate a particular tea, because they need to know for themselves. What are the benefits? What are things that they have to be careful of? What are contraindications involved? And check with their doctor. And I often say that to clients. I tell them right off the bat, I am not a physician. This is what's coming in energetically. This feels right in this moment, but you need to check. You need to investigate. If you're going to somebody who just says, here, let me mix up this herbal stuff for you. It's good for you, and you'll come back next week. Run. Because you don't know what you're getting. And as you said, the person needs to know, even with essential oils. Aromatherapy is a big to-do. I had a lovely friend on just recently who her practice is dealing with essential oils, but she deals with the most pure oils available. And she can tell you exactly what the components are, how they blend together, if they don't, if there's a problem. And she's not going to work with anybody who has any sort of malady that there's going to be a problem with. So knowing what you're dealing with is huge. Now, over in Hungary, let's say, because this is also new to them, because they're getting back to their roots, are they just looking at developing their own innate awareness? Or are they looking, as you said, for the earth to open up and give them information? And if that's the case, are they doing trial and error, or are they actually studying? Because I wonder.
Well, it's been both. That's the other part about it, because, again, they wanted me to teach more native stuff. And I'm like, no, I just feel like I would be sending you guys down the wrong path because you're Hungarians. Let's go ahead and do this the Hungarian way, the same way your ancestors did. Your ancestors sat with the earth. They asked a question. They asked their spirit guides, as far as their ancestors, and said, well, give me a vision, a sign, of something.
Sure.
But the other part about it, because under communist rule, there really wasn't that much of extras available. They did keep a lot of their arts, like wildcrafting. So when I was over there this springtime, particularly in Romania, you would look up the mountainside and see the locals just going up the mountain, picking the herbs and the flowers that were in bloom. And they were starting in the spring to make the medicines they were going to use that winter.
I love that. I do love that.
And the other part was so nice. Every community garden is a big deal here. Behind every apartment building or house, there was a community garden that had been there forever. The land is owned by the people or the town. So people are out there, in families, working the land. They pack all their stuff in dirt, like carrots, garlic. I've eaten some carrots and garlic that were 2 years old and still fresh.
Wow.
Okay, they brew their own wine. Everybody's grandpa has a still. It was great.
We were talking about that. So you didn't lack for any sort of spirits when you're over there.
Oh, no.
You've had plenty.
And here's the saying that I developed about Hungarians. Hungarians will feed you to death. But everything was like right out of the field, organic, or close to it. But they kept a very nice connection with the land. And in doing that, they kept a nice spiritual connection with themselves and the land and their ancestors. So
do you think, whether it was conscious or not, they maintained that connection? Meaning, we often tell people, if you really want to connect, if you really want to be able to hear better, it's more than just meditating. Go sit in a field, or go, I've been saying this for years, go hug a tree, go sit under a tree. Do you feel that it's instinctual, that they've just been working the land, or do you feel there's something beyond there that's, acting as a catalyst, perhaps?
I think that what happens is, and we've seen this, areas become hot. They become vortexes. Look at places like Sedona, long time ago. Asheville, North Carolina. I've watched that place change a lot. And then I'm watching, so these areas in the land can open up and become these hot zones or vortexes. And I think that's what's happening there, particularly in the Dobogoku area of Hungary. They call that's the center of their heart chakra. You're seeing so many people assemble in very, very large drum circles. It's like a normal sight. Here it's considered kind of weird. There it's quite normal to go through the forest and see a large group of people doing a drum circle.
And
I
nobody
mean,
gets nervous and nobody thinks it's
No.
like something
Here-
unfamiliar or they have to worry. They just either join or watch or go along their way, yes?
Yes, it is normal, and crafts come back. I mean, they make their own crafts. They can their own food, dry their own meats, harvest their own vegetables, and things like that. By the way, some of on Shamanic Lodge on Facebook, and I have another one for Hungarian-speaking people called Shamanic Transylvania.
Okay.
You can keep up with the things that are going on there.
Okay, so let's say that again so everybody knows. They can go to Facebook and they can look up Shamanic Lodge to see what you're doing with your travels, the interactions, what you're building, teaching, etc. And the other is Shamanic Transylvania?
Shamanic Transylvania.
Okay.
Okay. Most of it, but a lot of it will be in Hungarian and then and in English.
Well, I know you had several pieces on YouTube, but if I remember correctly, there were a couple of subtitles there on a couple of them, which was good. Because I'm like, what? What are they saying?
Oh, for the TV interviews,
Yeah, for
right?
the TV
Yeah.
interviews, exactly.
Right.
It was kind of fun. So are you looking forward to going back? I know you're going back in the very near future here.
I go to Germany in October 8th, and then October 20th I go back to Budapest, and then after that I go back into Transylvania, Romania.
So do you feel you're going to stay there indefinitely, or do you think you'll continue to go back and forth?
Oh no, I miss the beach.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's too
I
much
swam in
beach there, right?
Croatia. It was nice, but it wasn't South Florida.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on tonight. It's always great to have you here and hang out. We get to visit a little bit without
Yeah.
you guys.
Good to be
Anyways, if
back.
you want to reach Hawk, be sure to get on Facebook and look up Shamanic Lodge, and you'll be able to find Shaman Hawk. You can also type in Shaman Hawk, too, and you'll find him. Better to go to the lodge, though. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Thank you, and good night.
Be enchanted and delighted. Connect each week here on WNN for the Halley Elise Show. Also on Facebook and at HalleyElise.com. Thanks for tuning in.